Oh, I forgot to make my joke about how this. I was telling my friend that we were watching Spider-Man 2, and it's called that because it has two Spider-Man. She said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "There's two Spider-Mans. There's the one Spider-Man, that's the Spider-Man from the first Spider-Man, Spider-Man 1, and then there's Spider-Man 2, who is the Spider-Man that has extra arms." And I was like absolutely insisting that that was another Spider-Man, and she was not having it, but she also like wasn't 100% certain if she just didn't have all the information.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence, for I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known, the danger of
the Watchers of Earth. 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 96,283. I am your host, Andrew, and pedantic as always is my co-host, Seth.
That's me.
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today, and Seth's going to want me to say because he was saving someone from some rubble, but that's what he did last movie, so instead I'm going to say that he was preventing us from getting into a play for our recording studio because we showed up late and our shoes were untied and our ties were loose and we were just a disheveled mess. And our fourth co-host, Uatu, is here today, but is sworn only to watch and never interfere.
So today we watched Spider-Man 2, which originally premiered June 30th, 2004, written by Alfred Goh. I thought there was another guy. Miles Millar, Michael Chabon. Michael Chabon? Not the Michael Chabon, right? And Alvin Sargent. Who am I thinking of?
Are you thinking Haim Saban?
No, Chabon.
I know, that's why I was thinking you were just like...
No, who wrote The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay? Michael Chabon.
I have no idea.
Two people aren't named the same thing. Anyways, Peter Parker is beset with troubles in his failing personal life, Andrew, as he battles a brilliant scientist named Daughter Otto Octavius.
Daughter Otter.
Daughter Otter Octar. So, Andrew, in a sentence or less, what did you think?
It was fine. It's an improvement over the first one, but it's got all the same stuff. Scenes that exist just to set up a line for a thing. Scenes that just kind of start and then end. It's way too long. It's meandering. It has a lot of points where it just has like nothing to really say, but you can't really just like cut those scenes out because they're there somewhere else in the movie. Doc Ock is fun. I mean, I liked it. But, like, I thought we would rewatch these movies. I always said I didn't like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, but I hadn't seen them since they came out. And it was mostly just my memory of them. I think, at this point, I can say that while I was too harsh on them in the past, I think I was right. I don't think these are they're good. They're not that great. There's nothing special, really, about them. They've got charm, but they're fine. They're just fine. This one was fine. What about you?
So it's very similar to the first Spider-Man, where I think it does campy comic book stuff really well.
Everyone feels like they're acting. Alfred Molina more than anyone. But that's my biggest thing I meant to say for my sentence or less. I was thinking it through the entire movie. Everyone is just fucking acting.
They did that in the first one, and
I know,
there's a charm
like,
to it.
It doesn't charm me anymore. It's a little annoying.
I think, again, I like the campy comic booky stuff. I think it's really prevalent in these. I
don't really feel this is very comic booky.
I think like the fights and stuff, like a lot of.
But I guess you could say that about literally any one of these movies. This is no more comic booky in that sense than any movie we've watched for this podcast or any other movie we would watch.
I guess I think of like the surgery scene when they're trying to take the tentacles off Doc Ock.
That's not comic booky. That is Raimi. Whenever I think of Raimi, that is the exact scene I am talking about.
And I guess I think of like...
It has been like seared into my brain. When I think of Sam Raimi,
comic booky,
that is the scene that I picture.
So what is comic booky? That's a decent conversation here, because campy and comic booky are essentially the same to me.
Wait, hold on. I think this is going to just become a thing. Is this still your sentence or less, or do you want to just like cut in so that I don't have to figure out where to put a cut later?
When it's fun, it's fun. When it's not fun, it's too fucking long and it has pacing issues, much like the first.
Okay, cut.
So what is comic booky?
I guess in the past, comic booky would probably be exactly what you're describing here. Where we're at now, in how much we've complained about the Marvel, the MCU movies and everything. Comic booky for me is just freeform, balls to the wall, do it because it's a weird sci-fi superhero universe. And that's not what this movie feels like.
See, I guess
I'm not saying that that's not in this movie, but like, I don't know. He fights a guy with 8 arms and he's like, they're off the side of a building. And like, that is comic book stuff. And I'm not going to say it's not comic booky, but it's not comic booky in any way that I would call it out in this movie. It is the same as when he fights a guy on a flying glider in the first movie, or when, you know, they're all fighting in an airport hangar in Civil War. It's all comic booky because it's just like weird superhero stuff. But it's not like, I guess when I think comic booky, I guess the best example is probably Spider-Verse. And I guess you could say it in Far From Home as well, but that feels more like less comic booky and more just like metatextual crap that just happens to be something you would see in a comic book. In Spider-Man, like, it feels comic booky because it just feels like it's like throwing out wild stuff to do wild stuff. And it's just like letting the idea of a superhero, either the audience is on board or it's not, but it's not going to justify or explain itself to you. It is just going to do it, and you're either on board or you're not, because it's superheroes, and a superhero would do these things. And I know that is a vague way of defining it, that you could easily just say, I guess that's what's in this movie. Because you're not wrong, but I guess this doesn't really feel comic booky in any way that I would call it out. It just feels like an action movie. The same as like in a sci-fi movie where in Star Wars, is Star Wars comic booky because, you know, they're levitating things with their minds and jumping really high and swinging laser swords around. Is that comic booky? And that's just sci-fi. And that's what this feels like. It's just an extension of like the sci-fi of this movie.
It also doesn't help, knowing full well that Star Wars comics exist. Comic booky does kind of pigeonhole itself into like Marvel and DC movies. Like you said, like I would never really call Star Wars comic booky, but it's not a comic book.
Sure, but I mean, I guess that, again, that's where I'm saying, like, yeah, a superhero fights a supervillain in ways that, I don't know, a cop wouldn't fight a robber in your standard action movie. And is that comic booky? Yes, but is it comic booky enough to really call it out? For me, I'd say no. It's the same as, like, I guess when I say Star Wars, yeah, there are Star Wars comics. I mean, I guess there's comics of literally almost anything. But I guess I'm, like, at the point of, like, any type of action, like, sci-fi action movie, if they're shooting lasers or, you know, anti-gravity, like, is Inception comic booky? Technically, I guess, sure. But
I want to point out, when I jumped in there, I was not, like, I was agreeing with you.
Sorry. Sorry.
I know,
I'm used to you not.
I was like, I don't think he thinks I was agreeing with him. I think, like I said, for me, campy and comic booky kind of are a little bit of synonyms. I mean, we've gone on record plenty of times that, like, fun comics are kind of what we like, and a lot of that comes into that campiness. And I think you bring up a good point about when they're fighting on the train, when they're fighting on the building and stuff like that. Can you just throw that stuff in the modern Marvel Cinematic Universe and it doesn't feel out of place? Probably. But I think kind of the whole package to me, like I said, I mean, there's a certain level of camp here that I think, while isn't necessarily in the fight scenes, kind of just spreads throughout it. I watch it in a different mindset. There's probably things that Raimi could get away with in these movies that in the MCU haven't or wouldn't. Just because the overall feel, like we've said, everybody kind of feels like they're acting. It doesn't, you know, it feels like a presentation.
This movie feels like a production.
Yeah, and that's what we said about the first one. And whether or not that's, you know, better or worse, I think that adds to a campiness level to it. I think that campiness level kind of leads into what I think of when I think of, like, comic booky. Again, you bring up good points about what makes a movie a comic booky. And like I said, I think there's just some inherent connection with a comic book source material. But, you know, Sin City, is Sin City comic booky?
I would say yes.
Actually, that's a bad example because it
is like literally presented in a.
But, like, I don't know. Now I'm on the spot.
Now you know how it feels. Oh, how the turntables.
All I can think of is like 300.
How does it feel to make one statement and then have it just like fucking held against your throat like a knife?
I don't feel like it's held against my throat like a knife.
Oh, well then you don't know what it feels like yet. Hold on, I'll press a little harder.
I want to make it clear that at one point I was like, yeah, you bring up a good point about, like, Star Wars. And you're like, let me tell you about fucking Star Wars. I don't think you understand. I'm like, no, I do. I'm agreeing with you. Stop. No, I don't know. I mean, Iron Man. Is Iron Man comic booky? Just because it has a blue space laser?
I would say Iron Man is, again, it's not very comic booky because it doesn't really feel that out there. It feels like a sci-fi movie. And I guess it's a weird thing where, like, I don't really know where my line is until I see it, until I have to draw it in the sand.
And that's really what it is where it's just like, you know what comic booky is when you see it. And I guess I think the whole package, you're right, the fights and stuff, they can probably go wherever and have at it, but the whole package to me feels comic booky, I think, because of that extra camp. It's the production of it. It's just kind of, it feels like someone is making a movie as opposed to, I mean, and this is a slippery slope now too. We've complained about the MCU is just somebody is making a product.
I think like the best example for me of like what is comic booky, and especially like with camp, I think Batman Forever is a fun comic book movie. Same thing, it's like in the same kind of vein. It's just like the logical extension of the Adam West TV show, which I also feels comic booky because it just kind of feels like silly and self-aware in a way where it just like does whatever it does because it's like the answer just being because it's based on a comic book. And that's not really what this feels like to me. It's based on a superhero stuff happens, but it's still like taking itself like weirdly serious. But like in Batman Forever feels like a movie that is just like lifted off a comic book page. There are just villains there with superpowers that do whatever the superpower needs them to do because it doesn't fucking care. It just wants to have Batman fight supervillains. He pulls out a Bat credit card. He has a million different things in his grappling hook. His boots pop out ice skates. It just kind of like goes.
Is comic booky just kind of like Golden Agey for more vague, nebulous terms?
Maybe. And again, I'm not going to say this movie isn't comic booky. And I think, again, in the way that I think is slightly unfair to you, you keep using like comic booky as a way to define this movie. And I don't feel like this movie is comic booky enough for that to be like any of its like strong indicators.
Defining characteristics.
Yeah.
Well, and I was even wondering, like, without the MCU, do I think this is comic booky? In 2004, do I think this is comic book? Probably, because there's not a lot of
Probably because there's nothing really to compare it on. Like, we had never seen anything, like, to that degree, like, if you shove me in a time machine and throw me back in the past, yes, this is comic booky because it is taking these, like, larger-than-life ideas and putting them on screen for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, like, I've seen wilder stuff happen, bigger stuff happen, and even just the stuff in this just happen enough that it doesn't feel like they're really like, this felt like, you know, before a superhero movie was just you put one guy in a rubber suit and another guy in a rubber suit and they punch each other. And this one, it actually like replicates several powers and just like kind of has like a trying to show you what a superhero would look like in the world sort of vibe to it.
Do you think the first one was comic booky? And this isn't a gotcha.
Again, no more than this one is. Maybe slightly more than this one is.
Like, I wonder how much is a sequel kind of inherently less comic booky because that's obviously not true. But
I don't think it being a sequel has anything to do with
a lot of the comic booky stuff is gotten out of the way in the first one. And now you can just like, here's Otto and he has machine arms, so he can control this thing. Like,
I don't think for me that the sequel weighs into this in any way.
I don't think so for me, but I just wondered if that is like a concept, I guess.
I will say, as a sequel, I think this movie is also hurt a lot by being a sequel, as in most sequels are, because there's a lot of annoying shit in this movie where several scenes don't really matter because they're playing off of something in the other movies, so they don't really have any true purpose in this one. Mary Jane sucks. We're supposed to be watching this from the hero's perspective, and he wants to be with Mary Jane but can't, so she has to be in love with him, and as long as he finally is like honest with her about who he is, then everything will work together, or work out perfectly. But instead it just like comes off of this weird thing where she's just like, it feels like she's almost dating other people just to throw it in his face. I know that's not what's happening, but because we only watch it from his perspective where she's like staring at him longingly and trying to get him to come to play and meeting up with him only for her to suddenly just be like, by the way, I'm dating someone. And I don't know how much time passes in this movie, but it feels like
2 years.
She like dates that guy. 2 years passes within this movie?
No, from the first to this.
It feels like she like starts dating this guy and then they get engaged.
And
like,
then they're married
day.
like the next week.
Yeah, it's all... She is not good in this movie. Her role is bad. James Franco's role is nothing in this movie because he literally exists just to play off of what happened in the last movie. And like the will they won't they crap with relationships is annoying, and that's just because everybody in a writer's room, everybody finds it fucking either boring or too difficult to just write a healthy couple. There always has to be a fight, and if they get together at the beginning of one movie, they have to break up at the beginning of the second movie so that they can get back together again, because writers have literally no fucking clue what to do with two characters that are non-platonic other than to have them pine for each other and or fight. And so it's just like, it's annoying. So like, every time she was on screen, I was irritated. Also, all of her scenes are the scenes where he just like stares at her a lot. So her scenes are long, where they just like stare at each other and they speak slowly so that you know that they're really feeling things. And I will say, like, much like the first movie, a lot of these scenes are fast paced. They're just kind of like in and out. They got a thing to say and then they move on. If it's not the action scenes that go on for a bit, they just kind of like show up, some characters have some things to say, and then we move on to the next thing. Fade cut, hard cut, whatever we got to do. Bing, bang, boom, we're moving.
It might be because I watched Spider-Man 2.1, but I felt the first one was long, but that the scenes were quick. This one, I felt scenes.
The scenes are not as quick as in the first one, and I do think scenes drag, but I do think, like, compared to the rest of the movie, the scenes with Mary Jane are so fucking long because they just stare at each other.
I think it is because of what you said, and I agree, is that the romance plot in this is
nothing.
Is
it
anywhere
doesn't
from
exist.
bad
It's
to
there.
frustrating. Because
It's just there because she needs to be the damsel at the end, because Spider-Man can't just, like, I don't know, fucking save nobody or a nobody. He has to save the woman he loves.
To be fair, he does save nobodies in this movie.
He does, but the final act has to be...
To be fair, the
I gotta
last movie
save
he
Mary
does save
Jane.
nobodies in the movie at the final act in the first one.
Yes, but Mary Jane is also a factor there. I'm not saying he's not saving other people. I'm saying that the final act has to be a here's the woman you love in danger sort of crap.
I think...
Because the third one does it too.
I don't disagree, but I will say that it's the problem with the movie genre. That's not...
Oh, it absolutely
like,
is. It's
in
an
a
action
comic book,
movie
you
thing.
can... Who cares? Like, there's 400 more stories this year where you can watch him save no... But like a movie, I feel like... I don't disagree with you on... You can't just have two platonic people. They have to get together. Like, and you know as well as I do, it's because, well, we need to have a drama in our movie. We need to have, like... Like, I think there is an interesting story there where, like, MJ and Peter are a couple and, like, working through this stuff. I mean, what, they do it in...
Literally every Spider-Man thing ever.
Yeah, except for movies, I guess. That's not me defending it. It's just me being like, I know why they did it, and I think it's hard pressed to like find movies that don't.
It's not me calling this movie out so much as just saying like that is another thing I do not like about this movie.
Well, and again, it doesn't help that, like, I agree. All of the scenes between Peter and MJ are long, drawn out, frustrating because they have to browbeat the like misunderstood love and like, oh, you don't get it, like I want to say yes but I just can't. Like at the very beginning when she's just like, how come you won't come to my movie or my play, it looks like you want to say something, and then the audience is just like, he wants to say he loves you, Mary Jane, and she's like, yeah, what do you want to say to me? And then she's just like, I don't get, you're such a mystery. And it's like, you know what, like this isn't, it's written on his sleeve. Like
it's like watching the interrogations in LA Noire where he's like, I didn't kill that man.
Like I feel bad saying it because there's probably a more nuanced way to, but like you kind of alluded to where she's kind of written in a way in this movie where she's like playing hard to get.
Yes.
And again, she's always side-eyeing. She's always like, oh, look at me. I'm with this guy, Peter. It's this like kind of weird. I mean, I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just kind of how movies were written back then. Not that
I agree. But I think the worst, like the nail in the coffin for her, for me, where I can just go like, she kind of sucks, is when she runs away from her own wedding. And then there's that slow motion shot of her like running through the park in her wedding dress.
See, that's comic
and
booky.
she shows up at his apartment. And I was just like, okay, Mary Jane, you do suck. Like, this isn't just like, oh, you have feelings for Pete, but he's unavailable, and you do have feelings. It was just like flat out, like she's just sitting around being like, God damn it, Pete. The second you tell me, like, I'll fucking kill this man if I have to. Like, is that what you want from me, Pete? Just let me love you.
All the stuff where he's just like you said, the will they, won't they things, and every time he's like, yes, I love you, and she's like, but I can't. I'm a senator. And then but
my career.
But like, it's not written in a way where like they both don't understand wholeheartedly what's going on. They have to.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way they couldn't. And I agree that there's like this stupid thing where it feels like she just finally got fed up with it and was like, oh my God, he didn't call my bluff. But like, there's the scene where they're like sending invitations out, and Jameson's just like, why don't we invite your friend, the photographer? And she's just like, he's a jerk. He's not my friend. It's like, just invite the fucking guy. Like, stop doing this. Like,
Well, and then she's like, let me kiss you upside down.
let me test if you're the Spider-Man.
How about that, where at the end, when he has his mask off, she's like, I think I always
No.
knew. And I was just like, what? Because when she does the upside down kiss, I was like, is that supposed to be like she's actually in love with Spider-Man? Because she hasn't interacted with him the entire fucking movie.
Well, that's your
But it's supposed
complaint
to
with
be
the
like
first one.
her. Well, I know, but it's weird in that it's like, is that supposed to be her like knowing that it's Pete? Is that supposed to be her piecing it together? Because it's the way it is played. It is played so like nothing that is literally her just being like, well, if I'm gonna marry this guy, I may as well see if he kisses like Spider-Man because that's the guy I really want. But I haven't seen him this whole movie because he's been busy.
See, I kind of disagree there. I think it's really apparent that she's longing after Spider-Man.
I think she's longing after Pete this entire movie. I think she has no scene at any point where she even acknowledges the existence of Spider-Man.
Well, when
until
she's
he's in
talking
the
to her
room with
friend, she's like, when they're like shopping or whatever, and she's like, do you love Jameson? And she's just like, very much. And she's like, no, you're supposed to be like, I'm gonna fucking
I think that's
shake
an
his
extended
bones.
scene because I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, see, you missed out on a very important scene. This is part of
The crux of your entire
This
argument.
is part of the 8-minute crux of my argument of what makes Spider-Man 2 a good campy comic book film. So there's a scene after they're at the rich people gala, and Jameson, what's his name? John.
Yeah.
And John's like, hey, we're engaged. And then the next scene, MJ is with like her co-star. Remember when they're leaving, when like Peter's supposed to show up to the theater? There's like the co-star that
Wait,
comes
there's a
out.
theater? I think that's all extended cut stuff.
No, it's not. I'm trying to actually explain something for our audience, so probably don't do this right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. This is one of the parts of where the bullshit shenanigans are only funny if you do it, not if I do it.
No, this is 8 minutes of pure unadulterated Spider-Man wisdom right now. So she's like, they're talking, and she's like, do you really love John? And then Emma's like, Emma, well, there's like that wall with like a million posters of Emma Rose, of MJ, and her importance of being earnest thing.
It's like the theme of the movie.
But Ernesty?
Yeah.
Anyways, so she's like, do you really love John? And then Mary Jane's like, very much. And then she's like, girl, that's not love. Love is like jumping bones and like making sure he does everything for you and does everything to you and does everything with you. And like, you don't say you love him very much. You say like, he's my soulmate and like, I could never imagine being into anybody else. And then MJ's like, well, she's like, who do you love like that? And she's like, it's just like a fantasy. And she's like, well, then live your fantasies. And to me, that's like, MJ,
I will agree that sounds like a Spider-Man thing.
MJ
not a
is
Peter
pining
thing.
after Spider-Man. I feel like the kiss is like she wants, that is exciting for her. That like, it almost kind of feels like, let me see if you have the magic that I'm looking for. Whereas like, she obviously doesn't know it's Pete, but
she thinks she always knew.
So yeah, I don't know. What else? Where do you think 8 minutes showed up at? I did look it up.
I do know
But I forgot that. I
that
guess I
there's a
didn't
scene that I've seen where J. Jonah puts on the Spider-Man suit that I assume is in that,
Yes.
unless it's just a director's
Nope.
like a cutting room floor thing.
That's
So
in
I was
2.1.
waiting for that and it never happened.
So I've seen that before, and it's like, I don't know. I like Jonah when he's like, I mean, he has the better romance plot with Spider-Man. He has the better like, will he, won't
Will
he?
they, won't they?
Yeah, like, but like, it looks really bad. And I'm still not entirely sure they didn't just composite his head on an actor's body. It doesn't look natural. And I don't know what the real guy's name is.
J.K. Simmons?
J.K. Simmons is that nimble in 2004.
I don't know. He's fucking jacked now.
But no, I got extra fight stuff, which was crucial to the plot. I got oh, you didn't get one. Okay. Do you remember he's in class? He's like, it's like the first time he's in class or something after he talked to Otto and Kirk Connors calls on him and he like answers it. Was this a thing?
Yes.
So then there's a point, maybe this is earlier, I don't know. I think it's the exact same point. But it doesn't go down to like his notebook, right?
No, I think it just fades on him doing his goofy, stupid, schmucky smile.
So it like pans down to his notebook where he's like writing about Dr. Otto's fusion equation.
Oh, so this whole scene then didn't exist because he doesn't show back up in school until his powers disappear.
Maybe.
And if this is just after he meets Otto, before Otto goes crazy, then this is like a completely
Then
new
yeah,
scene.
this is completely different. So it pans down. He's writing like Doc Ock is...
He's doxing him.
He's writing his equation, and he has this dumb thing where he writes, "Uh-oh, energy too high? Kaboom!"
When Otto and Pete are just like saying science things at each other, I wanted to tear off my own face. That is hysterical.
And then he draws a picture of himself. Here.
Did he write MJ, 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 MJ under the kaboom? How about that? Stupid.
It's crucial.
Doc O's fusion. Uh-oh, energy too high? Kaboom! MJ, 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 MJ.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
That's the line he should have said when he says, Pete, in Far From Home, or No Way Home, when he says, like, Peter, you're looking well. How you doing, my boy? And he goes, uh-oh, energy too high? Kaboom!
Kaboom! Oh, there's also, I had a different elevator scene. You had, I guess, a funny quick bang bop. Mine was a long drawn out guy doing a riff on, like, I'm a marketer and I can market you and I'm going to like put you in books and children's books and we'll make Charlotte's Web without the pig, and it goes on for like
Hysterical.
30 minutes.
Love it.
I don't. There's also more stuff with Bruce Campbell. We meet Otto's wife.
We do meet Otto's wife. Well, I'm sure you have a different scene.
Then they have like tea and stuff, and
that exists in my movie.
Talk about T.S. Eliot.
That is in my movie.
Okay. This says I sent you.
I hated the T.S. Eliot stuff. I hated when they was just like, I was trying to explain the theory of relativity, and she was trying to explain T.S. Eliot. And I was like, were you just like shouting over each other? What were you guys doing? What kind of conversation is this?
You missed the part when everyone shows up for Pete's birthday, and then at the birthday, Harry's like, Spider-Man killed my father.
Nope, that was in my movie too.
Was it? All 11 seconds of it?
Yeah.
You saw the picture of Pete and Norman?
No.
And then Harry being like, I just want to find Spider-Man. Bring me Spider-Man. Yeah, you missed out on a lot. A lot of nothing.
Anyway, I don't know. The movie's fine. Like I said, I think all the dialogue I think is bad. It's overacted, and I think it's just a lot of just like lines existing to be lines said so that the lines that explain the plot can happen. Like I said, I hated when they were just like, you know, he meets Peter and then he's like, it's a fusion reaction, blah, 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 blah. And they just like say science things at each other, and I fucking hate that. And like Otto's like, oh my gosh, this boy's a genius. And I'm like, he's literally just like, he's doing a paper on you. You know, he's in school for science. Of course he's gonna like know what this thing is in the basic capacity where he said like 3 words. I always just kind of hate like genius shorthand being like, you know what a motherboard is? Oh my god. I just kind of like hate that stuff. It gets under my skin. And like that's what the T.S. Eliot, when it's just like, oh, look how in love they are. He's going to tell him a story about learning poetry, and like it all feels like fake and forced and weird.
That one felt long, but I didn't mind the science stuff.
I just kind of like hate that stuff.
I agree that, and I mean, it's the same thing. It's the charm I like, how the lines are all like noticeably overwritten. It kind of works for me here. I think where it doesn't is, again, when they sit down to have tea and then Rose is like, so by the way, Peter, tell us about yourself. You dating anybody?
And then he's like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know? No, the answer's no.
Well, and that's...
The question wasn't like, are you interested in anybody? It was like, do you have a girlfriend? And he's like, well, I don't know.
But that's where I, like, kind of draw the line, where I'm just like, this is only here for an ulterior purpose. And it's too noticeable for me, whereas I think a lot of that stuff is just kind of more noticeable to you earlier on. Again, I was fine with them kind of bonding over science stuff.
I didn't understand the point of Otto's wife.
She dies, and then he's sad.
He isn't. Like, he is, but he isn't. Like, it's not a motivating factor. It's not like with Harry, where he's like, Spider-Man killed my wife.
Spider-Man
he knows
mutilated my wife's genitals. I think it's... Like
I get what her, like, she's fine.
He has nothing left to lose.
But I guess even if she didn't exist, does he have anything left to lose? Like, her existence in the plot is not, like, her death, fridging her, is not extra motivation for him. It doesn't matter. At that point, he's already crazy and controlled by the tentacles. So, like, it doesn't matter. It's not like not having a wife would have been, I'd be like, I don't get why this guy's robbing banks. But now I'm like, oh, his wife is dead. Of course he's robbing banks. If he was a single guy, I wouldn't understand. But since he was formerly married, but is now widowered, whatever the term would be, now I understand why he's robbing banks and building how about he's like, we're gonna need money, and I'm like, just like having money doesn't mean you'd be able to buy this stuff. You're like a big crazy tentacle man that everybody knows, and you're building it in like the like run down remains of your
previous lab.
Dockside loft.
Does he build his secret lair in the dockside because his dock octopus?
It's his dock.
It's his dock.
And now that we know where it is, we can dox him.
Dock.
We can dox his dock.
We can dock. Every superhero, every comic book movie should have a moment like
where the villain gets doxed.
Every comic book movie should have a moment where it's just every origin story should be Batman's, and where Peter goes, "Yes, Uncle Ben, I shall become a spider," and then Doc Ock will be like, "Yes, Rose, I shall become an octopus."
Yes, tentacles talking in my head. The scene where the tentacles talk to him was too much for me. That was the most overacting in the entire movie.
Yeah, no, I don't like the tentacles.
He's like standing there. I don't mind that they talk to him. What I didn't like is like when he's at the dock and he's like, "We can't."
When he's at Doc Ock's dock,
dangerous. Yeah, when he's at Doc Ock's dock and he's doing a Doc Ock dock talk to his tentacles, he's like, I can't rebuild it. And then the tentacles like turn to him and he's like, oh, there's voices in my head. It's like something's talking, and he just like keeps like, he has to like, it has to be like so clear that the tentacles are talking to him. We can't infer anything. He has to make it text. It has to be so clear. There has to be a line telling us that those things are talking to him and he's hearing the voices in his head. He can't just like look at them and hold a conversation.
Yeah, I don't like that stuff either. But how about, so this is what I thought when he's having his little exhibition and he's like, "These are super robot arms that can withstand heat and crap, and I need them, and they're smart arms." Smarms. I want him to go, "Smarms. These are my smarms."
I didn't like
when he was it's a joke, Andrew. Smarms.
I didn't understand. Maybe I missed
8 minutes of additional
I know that
footage.
There's AI in there. And he may have mentioned it, but I didn't hear him actually say there was AI. I just heard the woman who was like, "How do you know that AI won't take over your brain?" I was like, why would you even think that would be a thing? Like, I know that that's what happens.
Did you ask that question because it's in the script?
But it seemed like a weird question where I was like,
did anyone ever?
Then I was like, what's the AI actually there for? Like, why does the AI exist? What does it really need to do? What do you need like full AI for? And then at the end, like once he goes crazy, I was like, why would the AI want to continue building this thing? Is that just the only AI's programming is build this thing under any circumstances necessary to create it? And you need a human mind to be like, okay, well, maybe there's limits. Maybe don't rob a bank and murder people.
Yeah, I didn't care for all the conscious smarm stuff. I will say, the other thing I didn't understand why it was here is, like, I understand it's a trope that superheroes need to have a secret identity so that people don't go after the loved ones. But, like...
You hate that it's a trope that superheroes have a secret identity so that the supervillains don't go after their loved ones?
But how does he know that? Like, he mentioned something at one point where he's just like, "I don't want you to be attacked." Or "I don't want her to be attacked." And I'm just like, who's going to attack her? The only person who would was Norman, who is now dead with mutilated genitals. And, like, that was the first supervillain in the entire world.
I agree. And I was thinking the same thing, especially when he keeps talking about, like, how important Spider-Man is. But in this world, all he does is really stop muggers. Like,
that's not
I know
important.
that he, like, no, but I'm just saying, like, I know that he jumps into buildings and, like, rescues people from fires, and there's, like, accidents, and he goes wherever there's police sirens. I know that he's contributing, but the whole, like, Spider-Man is important thing, like, the need for a vigilante justice, seems so weird when there have only been 2 supervillains, and the second one is happening right now.
Well, I don't necessarily think, like, he stops crime. Stopping crime is
good.
And
they do say, like, crime goes up when Spider-Man disappears. And I'm not saying that he's not, and I'm not saying, like, I like a street-level Spider-Man who just, like, does stop muggers and stuff. But in a world where there are literally no other superheroes and no other supervillains, it seems very weird that this is just, like, basically our New York City, but there's also a guy that shoots webs and swings around the city and sometimes just, like, keeps a guy from robbing you, from, like, stealing your purse.
I guess I don't have a problem with that.
In a world, I feel like the whole, like, I need Spider-Man. I need to be Spider-Man. He's important. I have a responsibility to use this power. It seems real weird when there's 0 supervillains anywhere.
But see, I guess
and I know that's a narrative thing for me, because in the real world, like, yeah, you could use superpowers to just, like, help people. But in this movie universe, it feels weird when, like, he has so much turmoil about being Spider-Man. And I'm like, I don't know, like, firefighters exist. They run in. They're better equipped to do the stuff that you're doing. Like, cops suck. So, like, I'm all for you there. But it's just, like, it feels weird. in a world without supervillains everywhere, where it's not like only I can stop Doc Ock. Like, it is, but like Spider-Man is necessary because the cops can't stop someone like Green Goblin or Doc Ock. So Spider-Man needs to exist in order to stop these greater threats. But if the threat is just like a guy with a gun, like, is Spider-Man helpful? Yes. But it doesn't have that like emphasis of like, it needs to be me. I need to sacrifice my life to help people because I am the only one who can.
See, I guess...
Unless there is a greater threat out there.
I guess to me, I just kind of take that as Spider-Man's important to Peter. Like,
sure.
Not, like, I didn't take that as, like, Spider-Man is important. Like, yes, there is an instance of Spider-Man is important to New York. But, like, it is, Spider-Man is important to Peter because it's important to Ben, because it's, like... And I think a lot of that is brought out when he does ignore the mugging. And, like, Peter is kind of torn between, like, Spider-Man is important to him because he has this responsibility. And so, like, Spider-Man's important to New York because he helps stop crime, but it's mainly a thing where Peter has the ability to stop crime, and that's important to him because it's important to Ben.
I agree, but I guess it feels weird to me. I mean, if that's the case, why not just, like, I don't know, become a volunteer firefighter? Like, why dress up in a super suit and swing around the city?
You're not going to like it, but it's because it's a comic book. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's not an answer to
it goes
that
the
question.
same way as like, it's like the same way as like Batman. Like, Batman spends so much money on all these crime fighting gadgets when he's probably better served just like donating or utilizing his resources to better society.
Yeah, I mean,
but like in a world with supervillains, like, then you go like, I don't know, the cops can't stop Mr. Freeze, but Batman built this suit that can withstand his cold gun. So I don't know. I guess you're right this time, Bruce Wayne, but maybe, like, I don't know, try and do something else other than just like punch crazy people in the face.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're like doing a thing and I'm just coming in here and not
I'm doing a bit of a bit, but I'm also like genuinely saying, like, in these movies it feels weird that he has such a burden. And I think your guilt thing is on point. I think that is a good call out. But it just feels weird that he's just like, I gotta sacrifice my life so that I can, I don't know, save... Like, I know there's that scene where he saves the kid from the fire, and then they're like, there's someone on the 4th floor. And the implication is like, if Spider-Man was, I don't know, actively trying to do these things instead of just like showing up after he hems and haws about it for 20 minutes outside this burning building, maybe he could have saved the 4th person. But I'm also just like,
See, I didn't even take it as that.
What do you mean?
I took that as that, like, that was another instance of like him just not being able to win.
You might be right, but I thought it was supposed to be a power and responsibility thing of like,
if he didn't lollygag.
This is like another Ben of like, if I had done what I could have from the start, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess like
you're not
the whole
necessarily
movie
wrong
is about
either,
him
it was also
not winning.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like the movie is, you had said poorly paced earlier, and I agree, but I think it's mostly poorly paced because I feel like it is like, it's multiple movies at once. It introduces the Doc Ock thing and then
ignores it for
disappears from the movie for a long time. And I know that it's because he's like basically just like, once he gets his money, he's just like, and now I'm going to go build my thing, and it's going to take several months in real time.
And the other part of it too is that like you said, there's the Doc Ock plot, which is abandoned. There's the Mary Jane plot, which is kind of a non-thing.
Peter's powers thing is a non-thing. It's just an excuse for him to be like, I guess I have to hang up the webs. It's not even like I am Spider-Man no more because I want it. It was because I can't anymore.
Right.
Which is weird, but it doesn't matter. It's not like it happens in the middle of the fight with Doc Ock. It just happens when he's swinging around the city.
I do like the idea of that, though. Like, making the deliberate choice, I think, is an interesting beat.
The deliberate choice to hang up the webs?
Yeah. And again, you can argue...
See, but I don't think
you can argue that it's like... I mean, you don't even have to argue. I agree that, like, he is kind of pushed out of Spider-Man. But, like, he talks to the school doctor or whatever for way too long, where he's just like, you just have to, like, know what you want. And I think there is, like... I think that's a good beat of, I want to be Peter. Like, why? Like,
sure.
With great power comes great responsibility, but do I need to have the power? Like, can I choose to not accept the power and skirt the responsibility? And ultimately, the answer is no. But I think, like, I liked when Peter is just like, I'm Peter, and I'm happy with this.
I think it is a good joke when he buys the hot dog, and then the police sirens fly by, and he, like, stops and stares at him, and then he awkwardly just, like, shoves half that hot dog in his face. That is a good joke. Mm-hmm. And then turns and walks the other way. That's good. I did not like when the guy was getting beat up in an alley, and I thought he was going to, like, that was going to be his call to action, but then he just, like, leaves. And I was like, okay, It's not like you need to be Spider-Man to stop. Like, you were watching that thing. It's not like you're in action.
The first
like,
time the
you
police
didn't follow
have
the
it.
sirens. Yeah, like, you didn't follow the sirens, and because you weren't there, someone got hurt. That's one thing. But that is him, like, literally, like, 3 feet from this guy, just being like, I guess I don't care. But it's not even like that, like, not my problem scene in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like really broken up about it. I was like, you could pull those guys off. It's not even like you need to be a Spider-Man.
It's
thing.
the movie having its cake and eating its too, where it's like, look, he's struggling with just being Pete, but we can't make this his call. Like, I agree with you that should have been his call to action. He should have like pushed him off and then been like, Spider-Man is necessary, or Spider-Man is part of me. Like,
or again, it could have been like, you know, those guys stole from a bank or something, or I don't know, the deli that he was walking past or whatever, and push past him, and he doesn't do anything to stop them. But then when he, like, walks a block ahead, he finds the alley with a guy, you know, his arm's broken, and they stole his bike. And then he's like, I didn't stop them, and now this guy is injured. But instead, he just, like, he watches it happen and then turns and leaves, and he's, like, 2 feet away. And it's really fucking weird, and I did not like it.
I even think it would have been better if he's kind of frozen and he's hesitant on what to do, and then, like, beat cops just
goes too far.
Beat cops just kind of show up and break it up, and he's like, that way you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, where he doesn't need to interfere because he's Peter now, and he doesn't hold that responsibility right now. But
it doesn't make him look like a complete fucking
he is
dick.
Like, he was kind of frozen in like, who am I? What should I do? And that kind of pushes him to like, I'm Spider-Man. Like, I have the power. I need to have the responsibility to act on it.
I didn't understand what was going on with his landlord's daughter. She's just like in 2 scenes, maybe 3.
2 scenes, and one of them is kind of like a weird, like, sexy thing.
Yeah, it
doesn't make any
She
sense.
doesn't serve any purpose. I feel like she was probably in an earlier draft of the script as like the replacement to Mary Jane.
Where, like, he
and
gets
then they
what he
just realized
wants.
they didn't needed her, but they had filmed these scenes.
Because that's what I thought. I thought, because she comes and gives him cake when he's like, I'm Peter, like, I'm Spider-Man no more, and like things are kind of going his way, and like she comes in, and I was like, okay, so he's going to like go after her instead of Mary Jane, and like this is him getting his whatever. But no, it's just like this weird,
His dick wet.
his sticky webs. Hey, do you remember when Uncle Ben and his brother were swingers, and then Aunt May is Peter's mom?
Oh yeah, how about that thing?
How about how many terrible Spider-Man stories there are? You know what else I didn't like? When they're at the bank trying to get a loan, and then Alfred Molina is just like there and ripping the safe off the wall, but
Okay,
nobody reacts
there are-
until he throws it.
There are parts of this movie that I really like. As much as I always remember the surgery scene being the bit of like Sam Raimi stuff that I hate, where I'm just like, that's like exactly what I think of when I think of Sam Raimi. Awkward cuts. I think that scene is fun. It has no place in the rest of the movie. Like, it is jarringly different.
The surgery
Same
scene?
thing. The bank, yeah, it serves a purpose. I'm saying, like, its editing and the way it's filmed is different from the rest of the movie outside of, like, a couple shots.
I would have disagreed with you until you said a couple shots. And I think those couple shots kind of... I'm a bigger Raimi fan than you are anyways. But I think there's...
That whole scene is full Raimi with, like, the guy, like, pinned against the wall, and then he, like, looks at a chainsaw, or not a like a buzzsaw, and it, like, zooms in on him, and then it zooms in on... It's, like,
all the close-ups
weird,
of
and it is
mouths
nothing.
screaming. Love it.
It is nothing but Raimi cuts. And that's not in the rest of the movie. There's just the occasional cut here or there.
I mean...
But those are just, like,
I guess the other
zoom
Raimi
cuts.
thing that immediately comes to my mind is when Doc Ock throws a car at them through the cafe window, and then it keeps like, he's like, you can hear him stomping like T-Rex, and every time he stomps, it zooms in closer.
How about, well, I want to say real quick, the other bit of the movie I really liked is I love that bank scene where he awkwardly just like a fucking tokusatsu hero pulling off their civilian clothes to become a Power Ranger or whatever. He just like pulls off the back of his coat. He doesn't even pull off his coat. He just like pulls off like a flap that his tentacles were under, and then no one notices as it goes, ah! And he just like grabs
Nobody
it. I love
notices
that.
until
I
he
love how
throws the safe
I know,
door.
but that's what I love about it.
Is that comic book?
I didn't like how Peter runs away and May sees that, and then it's never acknowledged again. There's just a scene where he's like, huh, your nephew's some hero, and then she never says anything to Peter. There's never a scene where he's like, I had to
it's
pee
a
real
good
bad.
bit, but I agree that like that's something you kind of call back on.
The car scene that you're talking about, how about 45 minutes earlier, 3 days before this scene happens, he goes to Harry, and Harry is like, kill Spider-Man, and I'll give you this thing that you could probably just steal from me anyway, but whatever. I guess we need to have an excuse for you to fight Spider-Man, even though we could have done the horrible misunderstanding that we always do, where you think that he killed your wife or something. Anyway, he goes after Peter, and I know Harry says, like, don't hurt Peter, but Doc Ock's already gone. But Doc Ock does know that he needs to speak to Peter in order to figure out where the fuck Spider-Man is. But his solution is to chuck a car at the back of Peter's head, and it's a good thing he was Spider-Man, because otherwise he would have killed the only guy who could have found Spider-Man for him.
You don't think Spider-Man would have shown up to Peter's funeral?
No.
Oh, let me tell you, in 8 minutes of additional footage...
Spider-Man goes to his own funeral. But that was where Doc Ock was trying to be a Doc Ock cockblock during his date where he was finally trying to kiss Mary Jane.
Doc Ock's patented Doc Ock cockblock. Oh, fuck. TikTok Doc Ock. The cock's gotta get blocked. That's Doc.
How about, the TikTok Doc Ock where he throws the clock hands.
TikTok clock hands when Doc Ock throws the TikTok clock.
When Doc Ock throws the TikTok clock
that rocks.
hands. I didn't like how Spider-Man just like kicks those out of the way,
and murders people.
I'm like, there's civilians on the ground that we can still see walking below them because they didn't bother to edit anybody out.
I thought so too. What do you think of Aunt May hanging from the umbrella and then being like, "Oh, there's a ledge here. Never mind."
Stupid, but kind of loved
Stupid.
it. I also loved like when she hangs from the umbrella and she says like, "Thank you to the angel," and I was like, "This is dumb."
I like her
this
thanking
is, like,
the angel, but I didn't
for.
I didn't like the she wasn't actually in danger.
I don't mind like the kind of like dumb stuff. Like I said, Doc Ock pulling the vault off the wall with no one noticing until he chucks it. Like I kind of love how stupid that is. That's the comic booky stuff.
That
I guess,
one is
where
more
I go, like that is
that's
comic
the fine
booky.
line. That's the fine line where I like the safe stuff, but like there was just something where I felt cheated.
It wasn't that safe. He was chucking around. Seemed pretty
I felt
dangerous to me.
cheated when May was not going to die.
And I mean, you were just like, thank God, No Way Home finally killed.
How
that
else
May
can
in front
Peter
of me.
be Spider-Man without the blood of Mary? Without the blood of Aunt May?
Oh, what a stupid fucking. I hate that. I was thinking about that today, watching this movie. Where
I'm still trying to figure out what rhymes with Doc.
Well, when he was presenting his science experiment, before he puts on the tentacles, it was proto Doc Ock, but it was his proto Doc Ock frock that he was wearing. And then he pulls that off to put on the tentacles. I don't know if we really get to see him. Well, when he's on the dock, when he's at the Doc Ock dock, before it's doxed, he's not wearing socks.
What do you think about... What do you think about how Doc Ock feels about the 2003 invasion of Iraq? Why didn't they talk about Johann Sebastian Bach?
Weren't they talking music at some point?
No.
Oh, he said Beethoven. Did Beethoven rest before he...
Yeah, they should have said, hey Doc Ock, did Johann Sebastian Bach? I just got writer's block.
Anyway, I don't know. The fights are fun.
Doc Ock, put your John Hancock on. The fights are a lot of fun.
I like the sideways fight on the building.
I like the sideways fight on the train.
I like that too.
I like the other
train
sideways fight.
I will say, like, for as much as I'm just like, it's not comic booky just because it's just like, this is the extension of this hero. Like, it really utilizes the power set of this hero specifically. That the first movie did not. There are multiple points, though. There are at least 3 that I can think of where he's shooting a web into nothing, like above the buildings that he's at. When he
didn't you play Spider-Man 2, the video game? He latches onto the water molecules in the clouds.
But I think the fights are fun. I think the CGI is
bad,
fairly good.
I did not.
There are times that it
and I think I watched the better
noticeable.
one. I think the 2.1 has better effects, and I thought it was.
Let me correct myself. I think the CGI is better than I expected it to be. Because I will admit, it is noticeable.
It was distractingly noticeable for me, especially Spider-Man flying around. At the end, the helicopters look like they're out of a fucking video game.
Oh, the helicopters are fucking horrible at the end. And it is laughably stupid. I don't even know what's going on there. He's just like swinging and like, I don't know, the police sent 2 helicopters behind him to show that...
No, he's following the...
I know that's what it is, but
I
it's
don't think
supposed
you
to...
do.
It's... I don't know. It's a weird scene. I didn't like it.
I didn't like how they looked like they were in video games. I didn't like when he saves MJ at the end and at night. That looked real bad. When he like flies off, but there's no motion. It's just like...
That was one of the shots where the web is above nothing. Like, it is just in the air. And then he builds that, like, web and awkwardly crawls over to her.
Yeah, why would you do that?
That is weird.
Real weird.
It's uncomfortable. Also, like, when he was catching people on the train, when Doc Ock was throwing stuff at him.
And he catches them in big web hammocks.
He just, like, grabs them and then chucks them off screen and then shoots a web to catch them. And I was like, someone's breaking their neck. Like, that is not...
In a real movie.
I know you gotta catch this guy. Also... Speaking of how, like, Doc Ock, throughout this movie, constantly just leaves the movie so that other things can happen without him interfering. Like we said, he steals from the bank and then he's just gone from the movie for a while. Even when he breaks out of the surgery room and then he's just gone from the movie for a while. The worst offender is the train. When he's on the train and he's fighting Spider-Man for a while and he's chucking people at him, and I was like, why are you chucking? Like, you want Spider-Man. You're not trying to get away from him. And then when he like breaks the train and he ruins the brakes so that it's gonna fly off the rails, and then he goes, looks like you've got a train to catch, which is a good joke, and he does like a little wave, and I loved it.
But then he was like,
but then he leaves.
Did you forget your reason for this whole event?
Yeah, he leaves, and I was like, what are you doing? Why is this happening? This is not...
Is he just gonna like...
at all what your plan is. And then like that scene goes on for like 7 minutes of him stopping the train, and then everybody pulls him back into the thing, and then they put his mask on him, and they're like, we won't tell anyone who you are, Spider-Man. And then he shows back up, and he's like, I'm here again. And I was like, what did you do? This is before like cell phones, because everyone would have snapped a picture of him, so it's not like you were on your phone playing like Candy Crush.
People still play Candy Crush?
I don't know, maybe.
I do like stories where the hero's unmasked, but then everyone's like, it's the spider, but we like him, so we're not gonna say anything. You don't. That's fine.
It's fine. I guess I didn't care one way or another.
I get little tinglies in those scenes where they're just like...
Little tinglies in your pants.
No, I just...
In my pants.
My back. And my Doc Ock cock. I liked at the beginning when he's delivering pizza, but it has like the superhero score over it, and it makes it seem like it's a big...
I hate the music in this movie.
Hey, you hate Danny Elfman, but anyways, I like when the superhero score is going, but it's like he's just doing like a mundane pizza delivery thing.
I like when he runs down that alley and then Spider-Man swings out and
that guy stole his pizza.
Spider-Man stole that guy's pizza. I love that.
Why? Because it's a campy comic booky thing?
Because it's like a stupid little funny thing. And if the whole movie was that, I think that's my thing, is like the campy stuff doesn't work for me because it's very, very melodramatic and soap opera-y in any scene with Aunt May or MJ.
Or Harry.
And a little bit with Harry.
Or Ock.
But there's a lot of like overacting. It's very like kind of hammy.
When it works, it really works for me.
The action stuff works as action stuff, but I think none of them fit together. The action stuff doesn't really work with the hammy overacted crap. The hammy overacted crap doesn't work with the action stuff, and the campy stuff doesn't work with either of those. Because the campy stuff is just like weird, silly bits that just kind of happen, and I'm just like, this doesn't feel like the rest of the movie. It just doesn't feel cohesive to me.
I guess I feel like there's enough campy bits kind of scattered throughout that I do kind of, like, it does feel cohesive to me. I mean, I don't 100% disagree with you on, like, you get the soap opera stuff with MJ, you get the, I mean, I guess action stuff you can kind of throw in any genre, and I don't know, it kind of works. But I guess to me, there's enough, whether or not it works, each individual bit works for me, I think there is, like, campy fun stuff scattered throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, even him, like, crawling on the web after saving MJ is campy.
I don't think that's campy so much as it's just a thing. I don't know. Anyway, is there much else? Doc Ock, I didn't really know what was going on with... Doc Ock does the exact same thing that Norman does in the first movie, where he's like, oh, Peter, now I understand, and I'm good. Well, never mind, no, I'm not gonna stab you. That's fine, but it's just...
When does he do that?
Rote. When Peter pulls off his mask for some stupid fucking reason. He pulls off his mask twice for dumb reasons. During the train thing, he pulls it off because it like sparks in his face. And I was like, why would you do that? You got like the lenses and everything. You're fine.
See, to me, I thought it was like his mask was on fire or something, or like...
I think it was like sparked,
it was in his way or something.
I mean, it's fine. Somehow those kids got it.
Yeah, I don't know how they got it, because he like threw it off this runaway train.
Yeah, he takes it off for Alfred Molina to be like, I know it's you, and now I'm trying to empathize with you. I get that, but it's just like...
Yeah, that didn't bother me.
We gotta take it off because Mary Jane needs to see it, and the villain needs to know who the hero is at the end, because we need to have the moment of the epiphany of, oh, brilliant boy, but lazy.
I was fine with him taking his mask off for Alfred Molina, and I think that's probably because I was fine with them having like the little bonding science talk at the beginning.
Well, okay, my thing isn't really... I was just saying that it's stupid that he takes his mask off twice for reasons that are...
Oh, you're saying you didn't actually mean what you said. Okay.
No, what I'm saying is that was a side point to how the same bit happens with the Green Goblin, where the Goblin is like, Peter, it's me, Norman, and I'm normal. And then he's like, I gotcha. And then he tries to stab him. And he does the same thing in this, where Ock is like, oh, Peter, I'm normal. And I'm fine. We should turn the machine off. Never mind. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna stab you with my tentacle. It's just, it's
I
fine,
agree
but it's just
what
like
you're
a
saying.
thing.
But I think they're different circumstances, because I don't feel like Alfred Molina was stabbing Peter.
Oh, they are.
The tentacles are stabbing Peter.
This is less a me calling the movie out and more just like making an observation. It is a thing that happens in both. But I didn't really understand what happened, because the last I remember is he was like, never mind, the tentacles are still in control. But then I didn't know what was going on when he was talking to Mary Jane and the thing was like collapsing, and then Molina like goes under under it. Then he's like, I won't die a monster. And then he like brings it crashing down on himself. And I was like, so he was fine now? He did break free of the control and then kills himself, which seems accurate, but I was just like really unclear as to what was going on there. And I'm also unclear as to when he gets pulled into No Way Home. These fucking home movies have the worst goddamn titles.
None of those make sense. We discussed that.
I know.
There.
But like with Norman, it seems to be very, very unclear exactly when he was pulled. But with Otto, if I remember correctly, I believe he says he was like surrounded by water, which implies that he gets pulled after he like starts drowning. Because then he's like, oh, I died. And I was like, wait, so you did it after your heroic sacrifice? You woke up here and decided you were going to kill Peter Parker? And I get that like the tentacles are still in control of him, but it seems inconsistent in a way that seems very, very lazy by the writers of No Way Home.
Shit.
A terrible movie.
It was fine.
Is there anything else about this one?
Harry says, yes, father, I shall become the goblin.
Oh, that scene was fucking weird. I didn't know what was going on there. He just like starts hallucinating his dad. It's not like he took the goblin serum and is going crazy. He's just like crazy because he's mad at Spider-Man. But then he throws a knife at a mirror that shatters to show the secret place where Norman was storing all of his bullshit.
Yeah, this is weird because all these were like in the part of the show where you're just like, hey, and another thing. I'm just like, yeah, I didn't really have a problem with that.
Did you see a whole scene that made sense with this?
I just didn't think it didn't
you just not
make sense. Like, or didn't not make sense. Like,
him hallucinating his father and then finding his secret thing as if he was guided by his ghost was stupid to me.
See, I guess, and to me, Harry is like crazy.
But
like I know, like goblin craziness is like a
serum.
different thing than regular crazy. But I guess, like, I don't know, it's a comic booky movie.
Harry doesn't come off as crazy in this movie.
Does.
He's gonna stab
every time he talks to Peter.
as...
He's just like, by the way, that's Spider-Man. I hate Spider-Man. 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 Spider-Man.
No, I agree.
Then when
but he
Otto
doesn't come
brings
off as
him,
an unhinged
Spider-Man, he's like, oh, I can't wait to look at this guy's face when I murder him. And then he's like, oh my god, it's Peter, my best friend. My whole entire world is blown wide open. I don't know anything. He like catatonically just like collapses, and then like. I don't understand, like, why you don't think he's crazy.
I disagree. I think the entire movie, he is pissed off at Spider-Man and full of malice towards the only target he has for his father's death because he understands no circumstances about it. He's not crazy. He's angry. When he gets Spider-Man, he goes to kill him, and then he realizes it's Peter, and he has clarity there. That's not crazy. He doesn't snap. He's confused.
See, I didn't read that as like clarity, as like an epiphany.
He's unsure what to do with this information that he has, but I don't think he's crazy. I don't think he fucking is unhinged enough to like see his father's ghost who directs him to shit that he shouldn't be able to find if he's just normal crazy.
See, that's that comic book stuff.
That's like that. No, it's not. It's stupid bullshit, and I hate it. And it's just to set up putting him in a goblin suit next movie. I think it would have been better if he was wrestling. Like, I think it starts to present him as crazy in that scene only. But I think it would be better if instead he was sitting there wrestling with what to do with the information that the person he hates is also his best friend, and then somehow through that stumbles across the goblin shit. And I know stumbling across the goblin shit falls into the same category of just like stupidly discovering this crap that he shouldn't be able to find, but I think it's better if he is struggling with this and then, I don't know, he goes in there and accidentally breaks open one of the vials of the goblin shit and gets sprayed with goblin goo, and then he's like, oh no, now I'm crazy. I think that is better than him just like sitting there being like, I'm a fucking Looney Tune, seeing the ghost of my dad because my friend is Spider-Man, I'm gonna throw this knife at a mirror, it's gonna shatter, and oh no, there's a secret hallway here for some fucking reason. Stupid bullshit. I hate it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree with you that it would be better if there was like a scene where he was like wrestling with the information he learned.
Is that in the extended version of the movie?
No. But I don't know. We're just gonna have to agree to disagree on it. Like, I don't.
That's fine by me.
I really don't think you would be satisfied with what you said. That's what you always tell me.
Anytime I say anything, I know full well there is an unspoken addendum to each time that goes, I'd still find things to nitpick because we're nitpickers. That's what we do. But I think that is a better version than what I got fucking here. I don't think this makes sense. I don't think he's crazy. I think the movie thinks he's crazy, but he is only crazy in this one scene. Never the rest of the movie. He's mad in the rest.
But he's in a downward spiral
in the
rest of the movie.
Sure, but the only time that he comes close to crazy is when he's drunk.
This is like his breaking point.
I don't think he has enough here to fucking snap.
His most hated enemy and his most loved friend is the same person.
But he also, like, hates Peter in this movie. He has multiple scenes where he's just like, Peter, I fucking hate your guts. Eat shit. He, like, slaps him at the party.
That's like the only time he hates
times.
Peter. And he's
No,
drunk.
he hates him at his birthday too, where he's like, Mary Jane's still waiting for you, Peter. And then he's like, yeah, I got stuff going on. He's like, it's because of fucking Spider-Man. I'm so mad about Spider-Man now. Fuck you, Peter, and fuck Spider-Man. And again, I know that sounds like crazy, but that just seems inconsistent character writing.
See, I guess there, like, he hates Spider-Man, and he knows Peter likes Spider. Like, I don't know.
But then he hates Peter
What
because
if
of it. And then that seems to, like, ruin their friendship there because he never shows up in another scene until he's like, Peter, come meet Doc Ock. I don't know. I think Harry is a complete afterthought in this movie. More than anybody else in this movie, Harry is completely and utterly nothing.
I don't disagree that he's only here because he was in the first movie.
From the original movie.
But I guess I didn't really have any issues. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I think it's just one of those things that worked for me. Like, I didn't have the same problems as you. But anyways, the movie still doesn't end. Then we go to the wedding, I think. Is that the end? Yeah.
I think so.
Then he flies out of
the wedding,
yeah.
and then Mary Jane runs out, and then she shows up at his apartment, and then he goes out, and then there's the helicopters, and it goes on for way too long.
And then, do you remember when movies had, like, alt-rock soundtracks? When they're like, hey, Train, write this song for our Spider-Man movie.
And that's it. Bing, bang, bada, boom. So, Seth, give me 2 put-ups and a put-down.
Well, I knew it as soon as I saw it. Surgery scene is so good. It is. I love that shit. I know you don't.
Again, I like that scene. I just don't think it fits in the rest of the movie.
Well, you also don't like.
We don't need to talk about it again forever. I don't dislike Raimi. I just don't.
Guess I thought you always.
I don't like Raimi when he's not making a full Raimi movie.
But I really like that stuff. It's like cheesy, fun. Like, I like the editing. All that stuff worked for me. My second put up is going to be, I actually really liked a lot of the fights in this. I don't quite know which one I want to pick. Probably the side of the building, I guess. I don't know. I think they all have their ups and downs. It was fun to watch, like, them fight on this side of the building and smash through windows, and Aunt May's in there with hanging from the statue and stuff. It's all good stuff, except for where she's like 2 feet off the ledge. My put down is going to be, I'm going to say the whole MJ stuff is just kind of frustrating and bad. I see what it's doing. I just think it could have been, had another pass and just like really nailed down what needs to be there and really nailed down what these people are actually saying to each other and how it matters, as opposed to just like nothing.
My first put up is going to be, I like the Doc Ock Spider-Man fight on the side of the building. I'm going to lump that in with the whole bank thing as well. Throwing the giant bags of coins and everything.
2 different
goofy.
scenes in?
They're the same scene. It's an extension. Because he grabs Aunt May and then he goes up the building.
You're right.
And I only am really lumping in the bank scene because I love when he pulls off the back of his jacket.
But not enough to
and
be
just
the
like rips that.
put up.
No, because I think that fight on the side of the building is the best fight in the movie. Everybody loves that train scene, and I think that train scene's fine. I think it's fun. I don't think it really is anything truly spectacular.
Yeah, I get it.
I think the sideways fight on the side of the building is really showing off what Spider-Man in cinematic form can do.
I think the train goes on a little long. And
it
while it is fun when he just like throwing bystanders at Peter, it doesn't quite make a lot of sense. Like, there's a lot of instances in the train scene that I'm just like, why is anyone doing this? Whereas I didn't really have that in the side of the building one.
I think the side of the building really shows off like a unique fight that only someone like Spider-Man can do. It utilizes his powers in a fun way.
And Doc Ock.
Having a sideways fight like that is neat. And I think it's a cool bit. My second put up is going to be a very small one. I like when Peter runs into the burning building to save that little girl, but specifically my put up is I like when he tries to jump over the gap and falls, and then he like awkwardly just like tosses the girl over there, and I was like, that's gotta hurt. But anyway, my put up is I like when she helps him get up. She doesn't need to, but she just like gets up and helps him up. I think that's like a nice little moment. My put down is going to be everything involving Mary Jane. Mostly because, like, I think my broad put up otherwise would just be the overacting.
You mean broad put down?
Or put down, yeah. But I think, kind of like you said, I get what they're going for. I don't like it. It's old hat. Every movie does it. It's annoying to have a sequel. It was annoying in the first movie to have them just, like, reject her love. It's annoying in this movie to just, like, meander around that.
It's not doing anything interesting with that information.
Yeah, it's just kind of like wasting time. And it makes Mary Jane look like a bad person. She does not come off well in this movie. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with her dating someone else and then deciding that she cares for someone else. It just, like, it all happens so quickly, and then, like, it even goes through with the same night that she talks to Peter is the night that she accepts the proposal, which seems like a slap in his face. Like, everything doesn't... I'm watching this from Peter's perspective, so it's not not necessarily completely fair to her, but everything feels like it is done as a show for people.
And there is a little line in the 8 minutes where she's talking to her friend and she's just like, my dad always told me that no one would ever love me. And so you can argue that, like, she's obviously insecure. You can argue that she is definitely, like, going with the first thing that comes her way. But I don't disagree that, I mean, even with that, just throughout the whole movie, she kind of has this, like, they don't play the will they, won't they card well at all.
And in, like, this movie, she keeps saying, like, she keeps talking about Peter as her best friend. And, like, in the first movie, they didn't know each other until they got out of high school.
How about they lived next to each other forever? And like,
yeah, and that movie seems to posit that they, like, become friends over the course of a year in the first movie. And it's just, like, weird where she's like, you're my best friend and we've known each other forever and you're just my soulmate. And I'm like, you guys don't have anything in common. Like, I don't understand what you see in each other other than, like, he thinks you're pretty and you're next door and you think he's nice, I guess. It's weird. They don't feel like they have any chemistry. So I think she is the worst factor in the movie. And it's unfair to her, but I mean, she doesn't add anything to this movie. She actively works against it. I mean, I understand thematically with, like, the idea of, like, giving up his life as Spider-Man, that this movie, that's another, like, extraneous thing. But I see what it's doing. It just needs to be a movie built around that, not just, like, a weird 20-minute segment in the middle because we need to have time for the villain to build his big machine.
Oh, I do want to touch on, you mentioned the burning building. How about when he just, like, saves that girl and then runs out and then hands it to, like, the first couple he sees? He doesn't know that's her parents.
I thought the same thing.
And then he just, like, leaves. It's not like he stays and is like, is this your child? He just, like, hands them to them and then leaves. I'm going to be easy here. I'm just going to put it over Spider-Man. You know, I think I always liked the original one over this one, but I think this one, I don't know, this one has a lot of good stuff in it. I don't know why I hated it so much when it first came out. I don't know if hated it is the right word, but I just remember not really. Everyone always loved Spider-Man 2, and I was just like, I like the first one.
I'm going to do the exact same thing. I put it right above
I just don't have the
Spider-Man.
mental capacity to figure out where it fucking goes. I liked it more than Spider-Man.
I think this is exactly where it goes because I have it right. I think it's better than the first Spider-Man in a lot of ways. It's worse in a lot of ways as well. But I think overall, I like it better. That puts it under Iron Man, which I think Iron Man is just a better, easier, more concise movie.
But is it comic booky?
No. But luckily, this is not a rank of how comic booky is the movie.
Damn it! Are you kidding me?
So yeah, pretty simple. Number 25 for me, and I believe for you that puts
number
it
21.
At 21.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with interference.
Watcher.
Seth,
Andrew,
now
the
that
mics
the
are
mics
still
are off.
on. We're going to watch Spider-Man 3. We're not even going to poll. I mean, we could and just... I mean, people are going to vote for Spider-Man 3.
At this point, just finish the
People are going to vote
trilogy.
for Spider-Man 3 anyways. It's more just like, we took last week off, so we didn't poll. And I'm just like, why even bother with the poll right now? We're going to watch Spider-Man 3, which is the bad one, because there's 3 villains.